The architecture of the sky and the sovereign of the storm. In the suffocating, paranoid cosmology of the ancient Mediterranean, the absolute architectural sovereignty of the universe was initially monopolized by Kronos, a terrifying titan who relentlessly swallowed his own children to prevent the mathematical certainty of his own usurpation. The genesis of the ultimate patriarch, Zeus, required a masterpiece of maternal subterfuge, driven by his mother Rhea, who, guided by the primordial Earth Mother Gaia, orchestrated a flawless biological deception. She presented her ravenous husband with a heavy stone tightly wrapped in swaddling clothes, which Kronos blindly swallowed into the lightless abyss of his belly, completely unaware that his youngest son had been spared. Spirited across the churning sea to the rugged, fertile topography of Crete, the infant Zeus was concealed within a dark cave upon the heavily wooded slopes of Mount Ida. To bypass the all-seeing gaze of his father, the nymph Adamantea suspended the child from a rope, leaving him dangling in a dimensional void strictly between the earth and the heavens, while the heavily armed Curetes executed deafening, rhythmic war dances to perfectly camouflage the fragile cries of the future king. As Zeus's biological frame expanded into unparalleled muscular supremacy, his psychological hunger for vengeance became absolute. Launching a calculated ambush against his tyrannical father with the help of Gaia, Zeus delivered a visceral, crushing kick to Kronos' stomach, violently forcing him to regurgitate the heavy stone and the fully grown, immortal bodies of his siblings. To permanently secure the geopolitical bedrock of the cosmos, Zeus initiated the Titanomachy, a grueling apocalyptic war of attrition that raged across the plains of Thessaly and the lower slopes of Mount Olympus for a full 10 years. Rejecting mere brute force, the young sovereign deployed supreme tactical intellect, freeing the terrifying Cyclopes, who forged his ultimate unyielding weapon of mass destruction, the blazing Thunderbolt, and the gargantuan Hecatoncheires, monsters possessing 50 heads and 100 hands. Revitalizing these abominations with the highly guarded magic of nectar and ambrosia, Zeus unleashed a catastrophic offensive that shattered the Titans, permanently banishing their heavy flesh to the lightless, suffocating pit of Tartarus. Ascending to the towering bronze-founded palaces at the zenith of Mount Olympus, Zeus claimed absolute dominion over the skies, dividing the aquatic and subterranean realms between his brothers Poseidon and Hades to perfect the mathematical equilibrium of the universe. Yet the sovereign architecture of this new celestial empire was perpetually haunted by the chaotic, biological hunger of its patriarch. Operating as a master of physical and psychological transfiguration, Zeus relentlessly warped his divine anatomy to penetrate the heavily guarded bloodlines of both goddesses and mortal women. To subjugate the formidable psychology of his sister Hera, he engineered a masterpiece of emotional manipulation, adopting the fragile, shivering form of a fledgling cuckoo battered by a manufactured hailstorm. When the goddess compassionately pressed the bird to her warm flesh, he instantly resumed his true form to forcefully execute his seduction. His predatory shapeshifting mapped a terrifying geometry across the ancient world. He mutated into a majestic white bull to violently abduct the Phoenician princess Europa across the churning waves, descended as a shimmering shower of gold through a claustrophobic prison skylight to impregnate Danae, and adopted the guise of a graceful swan to assault Leda. When the Theban princess Semele arrogantly demanded to look upon his undisguised absolute glory, the sheer radioactive radiation of his true form instantly annihilated her mortal body into smoking ash. Executing a miraculous surgical extraction, Zeus salvaged the unborn fetus, Dionysus, sewing the child directly into the heavy flesh of his own thigh to complete the gestation. Furthermore, to secure unparalleled cognitive supremacy and thwart a prophecy of his own downfall,
Zeus engaged his cousin and wife, the highly intelligent Metis, in a calculated game of transfiguration, goading her into assuming the microscopic form of a fly before ruthlessly swallowing her alive. This visceral containment ultimately culminated in the agonizing cranial birth of Athena, who sprang directly from Zeus's violently cleaved skull, fully armored and permanently anchoring his monopoly over war and wisdom.
From his golden courtyard on Mount Olympus, Zeus orchestrated the fragile destiny of the terrestrial Earth with a calculating, frequently malicious intellect. When the defiant Titan Prometheus attempted to elevate the mortal race by stealing the highly guarded celestial magic of fire, Zeus's psychological fury was absolute. He commanded the brutal, eternal crucifixion of Prometheus upon a high mountain peak, and engineered the world's first woman, Pandora, as a beautifully constructed biological weapon designed to unleash apocalyptic sorrow, sickness, and death upon the mortal world. When humanity's hubris finally eclipsed his unyielding patience, Zeus mandated a catastrophic, world-drowning deluge, deliberately annihilating the terrestrial crust and sparing only the submissive, calculating intellect of Deucalion and Pyrrha, who rode out the abyss in a fragile wooden chest. Thus, Zeus endured not merely as a god of thunder, but as the supreme, calculating architect of existence, maintaining the precarious, blood-soaked equilibrium of the cosmos through an eternal theater of blinding violence, geometric law, and the relentless, predatory exertion of his own divine flesh.